All right, Harvard University has slowed hiring and frozen salaries since it disclosed that the value of its endowment will probably drop about a third in the year, which ends this month, their fiscal year. Drew Faust is president of Harvard University. She joins us to discuss the challenges facing the Ivy League colleges. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Let me ask, first of all, about the endowment. And when we talk about this is not a typical college endowment. It's massive. I think it's the biggest. The drop of 30% for the end of this fiscal year. Do you still expect that?
That's been our planning assumption since late last fall, and we still think that's a good planning assumption. Of course, there are a few weeks left to go before the end of our fiscal year. And we also have some investments that have not been clearly evaluated at this time, so we're not positive what the final number will be, but we think 30% is a good estimate for the year.
Even with this big rally that we've seen since the March lows. Let me ask you, at commencement, you said Harvard must decide what we can and must live without, and we talked about frozen salaries. Will you reduce the size of the administration? How much is that going to be? How deep are the cuts, do you think, going to be?
We're looking across the university at the right kinds of ways to adjust to this change in our financial circumstances. And what we want to make sure of as we make these decisions is that we are the architects of change, not the victims of change. And so we want to make sure that our priorities are supported, our priorities for research and teaching, and that we find ways to adjust to the downturn that enable us to strengthen ourselves overall as an institution. We feel there are lots of collaborations, lots of coordination across administrative units that can give us savings and efficiencies, and we also want to look hard at how we do all the work we do in order to figure out the best ways to respond.
You know, Harvard was one of the first colleges and being really finding new ways of getting students who maybe wouldn't otherwise be able to afford this kind of education to afford it. Is this going to cause a problem for those students? I mean, are you going to have to go back to more of a school for the elite?
We, last fall, when we began to recognize the circumstances in front of us, one of the very first things we did was to affirm our commitment for the coming fiscal year to the financial aid program that we had developed over the past several years. We did that for our undergraduate financial aid program as well as for the levels of support that we have offered our graduate and professional students. This has been a very important commitment for us over the past several years to enhance the accessibility of a Harvard education for students, and we thought that was one of the priorities that we really wanted to target and maintain as we looked at how to plan for the year to come during those initial weeks of the crisis last fall and into the winter. And so we have affirmed that as part of our budgets.
How key is that? Because when we look at businesses in this downturn, you can see that businesses are losing a lot as far as revenue, but a lot of them say now's a time to really pick up market share. Now's a time to really outperform. And I would guess that if you get the best students in the world, regardless of their ability to pay for it, you can really better the prospects for the college going forward.
That's been such a central part of how we see ourselves as a place for talented students, talented faculty. We want to make sure that finances are not an impediment for students who could imagine themselves and at a Harvard education and who qualify for a Harvard education. So that seems to us just a central principle of what we are as a university and what universities are to the United States. We are the vehicles of access to society and to social mobility. So we feel this is extraordinarily important.
How have you seen enrollment, or I should ask, more importantly, applications change in this downturn? Because especially, Bloomberg viewers who have lost their jobs, a lot of them have gone back to business school. Are applications there booming? I mean, is this the time for the most applications ever, for example, the business school?
Well, we've seen rises in applications across our schools, and part of it is what you describe, I think, that individuals think, well, maybe this is a good moment to be out of the market and to enhance my credentials, be that business school or law school or whatever kind of educational opportunity an individual might define. We've also seen really highly increased numbers of undergraduate applicants. We had 29,000 applications this year for an undergraduate class class that will number around 1,650.
Those odds are no good.
Right, that was pretty dramatic. But I think there's another aspect of the increasing interest that we've seen by students, and that is the public service moment in which we find ourselves. And we find increased numbers of applications, for example, for the Kennedy School of Government. I think that's part of the political mood of the moment, that this is a time to go to school to be able to be a public servant as well as to do a variety of other kinds of things.
Especially as the political class overtakes the Wall Streeters as far as power in this country. Drew, thanks so much for joining us. Drew Faust, president of Harvard University.